Today we're at one of my favorite places, Pine Valley Christmas Tree Farm in Cecil County, Maryland. I used to work here when I was a kid, and they have the best trees in the business. Today we're going to talk to the family and learn what makes the perfect Christmas tree. Johnsy!
Hey Greg, how are you? It's a long time no see. Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you actually remember this, but I worked at Pine Valley Christmas Tree Farm, probably 91, 92, and I worked here for a season, and Owen would do the shearing of the trees, and then I stayed for the Christmas season when you guys had your shops. And I don't even know if this was even built at the time.
It wasn't. We were still down in a barn.
Exactly. So I remember coming here. I would eat lunch with your dad. We would work to get the trees in. People would do the tagging, and to me, it was one of the most special times in my life because I got a chance to learn what it means, not just to from an agricultural perspective, but understand what really Christmas spirit really is. It's really at this place. Your dad, who is just a special individual, so he's pretty much planted every damn tree on this property.
He has, very much so.
And when I worked
thousands of trees.
and when I worked here, again, so long ago, I'll never forget. He and I would walk the farm, and he would talk about. He would say, Greg, there's a tree we're bringing here. We're going to grow here called the Fraser fir.
Yes.
So, Johnsy, tell me what makes a Fraser fir so special to you and your dad.
I think that one, it's the fragrance.
Okay.
Fraser fir is probably the most in-demand tree, the most popular tree here on the East Coast.
Okay.
Probably on the West Coast, it's noble fir, but here on the East Coast, it's Fraser fir. They're grown primarily in North Carolina, but they're also grown in Pennsylvania. But they're just beautiful. They have a deep green foliage, and on the underside is a silver sort of look to them.
Okay.
Like I said, they're super fragrant.
Right.
They have sturdy branching.
Okay.
And for me, I think it's just the traditional Christmas tree shape.
The thing that I've always kind of reveled in this product is the idea of the soft needles.
Yes.
And that's something to me that I remember from learning from your dad is that it seems to save their needles longer, correct?
Yeah, so Fraser fir has probably one of the best needle retentions of all the trees, at least here on the East Coast. And so that's the plus, is that not only are they beautiful, but they have the softer needles, stiffer branching, and needle retention is really excellent. I keep my tree in my house for probably 2 months.
Wow.
I do.
So when we talk about needle retention, that's a big deal because the people that believe in having a real tree, we know that the world has changed and everything is turning into fake, plastic and this, plastic that. There's a certain customer that likes to have a real tree.
Yes.
And you guys are one of the biggest proponents of the idea of having one in the home. So when we talk about what it needs to get to this phase of being in your house, how long would trimming the shape have to be done before it actually gets to this stage?
So we start when the tree is probably the second year in the ground.
Okay.
And a seedling is anywhere from 3 to 5 years old when we plant it.
When we think about Douglas fir and the standard Christmas tree, I guess Douglas fir would be the standard, or pines, or...
So back in the day, we started with Scotch pine, and that was the standard tree back then, with Scotch pine and white pine.
Okay.
And then it morphed into Douglas fir. So Douglas fir was the most popular tree.
All right.
And it has become one of the lesser popular trees. I won't say least popular, because we still have our Douglas fir customers, but most people want that Fraser fir. That's the phone call we get. You have Frasers, you have Frasers, yes.
So we have another tree here.
Yes.
And I'd like for you to tell me what species we're talking about.
This is a blue spruce.
Okay. Very indicative of Christmas.
You may ask why people would want something so prickly in their house.
Okay.
One, blue spruce have really stiff branches.
Okay.
And I don't know, not terribly.
A little bit, right?
Very stiff branches. I always tell people, if you have little kids, it's great for keeping them out of the tree because they'll touch it once and they'll be done.
If you're a big, expensive antique ornament person.
There you go. Absolutely, yes.
Sure.
Blue spruce don't hold their needles as long as Frasers do.
Gotcha.
So I would say 3 weeks, probably, maybe 4 weeks
That's
if you're
the
lucky.
extent?
Yes,
Wow.
if you're lucky. Yeah.
Okay, so that's even if you water and you cut.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Now you could, depending on your house, if your house is cooler and you don't have hot air blowing on it, you may get 4 weeks. But
Oh yeah, that's just not long enough.
No, I know.
Not
Trust
if you're
me.
a Christmas person.
Yes.
To me, you're looking at the idea that you want to extend that, and
Absolutely.
Americans like to extend.
They do.
The longer the possible.
They do.
So, all right. So this is the quintessential blue spruce Christmas
Yes.
tree.
Mm-hmm.
Any more sap issues than the normal tree?
No, absolutely not.
just
In fact, it's hardly any sap issues that I've ever run into.
Okay.
Even when we're trimming, there's not that much sap coming from a blue spruce.
Wow.
Yes.
And what do we? So when we talk about these the ends, what exactly are these here?
They're the buds.
Okay. So it's
So
just
those
budding.
are next year's buds.
Okay.
And that will be next year's branches.
And this is normal for the time of year from the natural shear that you would have done.
Yes.
That they always have buds at the
Yes,
end.
yes.
It's showing growth.
So
right?
what happens is that we come in and trim, and then they set their buds.
Okay.
So this is actually bud set.
Great. Awesome. So what do we have? What do we have over here? Let's go right to this because
Okay,
this
sure.
is. I have to be honest, Johnsy. I've never seen a tree like this, and I think that this is. I really love the interesting part of the trunk exposing. So what do we have here?
So this is a Nordman fir.
A Nordman fir.
A Nordman fir.
Okay.
I believe that they're pretty popular in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
They grow a lot of them in the Pacific Northwest as well
Gotcha.
as nobles. When I'm explaining this to a person and they don't, because they've never seen a Nordman
Sure.
before, I like to say that the branches are more linear.
Okay.
So for instance, if you look at the Fraser and the blue spruce, the branches are upswept.
Sure,
Whereas,
it's dense, right?
Right, so you can see the trunk usually,
Okay.
and it is more linear.
Okay.
They don't have a lot of smell to them, but they
Gotcha.
have great needle retention.
Okay.
And
It feels like
people-
a shrub. I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's definitely a. From 50,000 feet when I saw them by the parking lot, this is the new cool tree.
I think it is.
Yeah.
My daughter loves them.
Does she really?
Yes, yes, and even my granddaughter. So.
Yeah, and I love it's interesting how you see the needles growing. But
Yes,
you have
isn't
it's
that
almost like a white
strange?
birch kind of
Yes.
trunk is like a white
Yeah.
birch. So if you're into that kind of color scheme in your house, it doesn't lend itself to the reds. It's almost like blues and
Right.
greens.
So now, white pine, this is probably one of the least popular trees. And we stopped growing it for a number of years because we weren't selling many.
Okay.
But what I found was that we have maybe 24 customers who always ask us for a white pine.
Okay, and you have to
And-
deliver on that.
Well,
okay.
Where
You
else are you
try.
going to get it, right?
That's true, sure.
And it doesn't, I mean, white pines are fairly easy to grow. They do
Okay.
have some disease issues, like white pine weevil and stuff like that. But for the most part, they don't. But the thing is, most white pines have pretty flimsy branches.
Yes.
So I call this the white lights tree. Just
Okay.
put some white lights on it and you're done.
So your dad is the brainchild behind all of Pine Valley's
Yes.
farm and trees.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you remember as maybe a little kid and your dad planting that first set of trees. Tell me about that.
So actually, my older brother needed
Okay.
a 4-H project, and for some reason decided that planting trees would be a fun thing to do.
Okay.
And I believe they were blue spruce and maybe Scotch pine.
Okay.
And I think he planted, I don't know how many, maybe 500.
Whoa,
And
okay.
maybe, I don't know
That's a
the
4-H
exact
project for
numbers.
sure.
But my older brother has a lot of allergies, like hay
Okay.
fever type allergies. Had no interest in it, and my dad fell in love with it. My
Trees in
dad,
general.
in general, in growing things. Like my
Okay.
dad's still an avid gardener. At
Okay.
90 years old, he still does our garden, blueberries,
Oh, wow.
and he
Okay.
just fell in love with growing trees. And so my older brother isn't even part of the business.
Oh, he didn't
but
pick up on
because
that.
of him, we do have Christmas trees.
Wow. So
Yeah.
how many, when you talk about Christmas tree farms in our area, how many are we talking? Not counting Pine Valley.
In our area, Choose and Cut Farms, maybe a dozen,
Okay.
if you count all the really small ones.
Sure.
Larger farms, there are only a handful of us.
Like a wholesale-ish kind of thing? Or
No, there are no wholesale people
Okay.
around here.
Wow.
They're just, nobody has the land to be
Gotcha.
able to wholesale.
Gotcha.
We wholesaled out of North Carolina for a lot of years.
Wow.
But nobody around here wholesales.
So the Underwood family built a Christmas tree farm. So it's one thing to say, hey, I want to help my son out and do a project.
Yes.
But how do you go from that into I'm going to operate a scalable Christmas
You
tree
know,
farm?
it was a hobby for him.
Okay.
And then an avocation, which is basically a hobby that makes some money.
Okay.
And then when my father retired from his full-time job,
Okay.
it just became more of a business.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then how many times that Uncle Richie and Aunt Susan wants to get a tree, and then before you know it, I'm on to something here. Right?
Absolutely. Well, my dad tells the story, and I was too young to remember, so I was probably 10. But how he sold some of his first trees was he cut a bunch, put them in the back of his pickup truck, and took them down to the town of Northeast.
Okay.
And just drove down the street,
And
selling them to people. $5 a tree.
Oh wow! So
Yeah.
I mean, it's such an American pastime.
It is.
I mean, it's like
It is.
apple pie and baseball in the sense that you cut down your tree, and in those times people would go into farms and cut down wild trees.
Yes.
And now we have places that can plant different species.
Yes.
And we've learned so much that you can actually understand a family's needs and give them the tree that they need.
The National Christmas Tree Association has tried very hard to get the word out that it's okay to cut down a Christmas tree, because people who are growing Christmas trees now are doing it, it's farming. And when we cut down a tree, we will replace it with 1 to 2 other seedlings.
Right.
And so I try to tell my customers, it's like, oh, I hate cutting down a tree. And I said, but this is what we're growing them for, is for you to be able to cut them down. And it's actually healthy because as a tree ages, it doesn't produce as much oxygen as it did when it was younger.
Well, that's interesting to know, because like you just said, this is no different than corn.
Correct.
Right? So
That's
you might not be ingesting that thing,
Right.
but it is providing a service, and it is providing jobs, and there's a reasoning for it.
Well, and it provides habitat why the trees are here. I mean, we've got foxes on the property, there's mice, and there's birds, and there's rabbits living here in our fields. And it also helps with erosion. That's one of the things, is that we always lease the land out to a neighbor's farmer. And we were having some soil erosion problems, but you can see that this is grass now, and we're not having erosion problems.
So we know that Elkton's kind of famous this year for a certain Christmas tree.
It is.
In a certain place in New York. What do you know about it?
So the tree for the Rockefeller Center is a Norway spruce, and it came from a private residence about 6 miles east of here.
Okay.
Right before you get to Delaware.
Gotcha. And so how do you know? I'm assuming that they scout trees, or how does that work?
So according to the arborist from the Rockefeller Center, he claims that when he goes to places, he doesn't follow his GPS. So he was at a nursery in New Jersey, and he claims that his GPS said go right, so he goes left, and ended up in Maryland in this development that even locals have trouble navigating, and he found this tree.
And he looked up, and there it is.
So we don't quite believe that story, but that's what historians, so he's sticking to it.
Do they normally go to people's houses, or is it normally...
I think it almost always comes from a private residence.
Okay, it's just a random thing.
It is, yeah.
So it's a Norway spruce. How tall are we talking?
About 79 feet.
Damn.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's.
Yeah, it was a beautiful tree. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you think about, that's other than the White House, what's bigger than the Rockefeller tree, right? I mean,
that's right.
That's exciting. So,
Yeah.
so I really want to thank you for spending time and allowing me to learn what I've learned for a long time about how great you guys are, what you do for the community, and to honestly how you're keeping Christmas alive with real trees. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So good to see you.
Thank you.
Come
Merry
back
Christmas
anytime.
to you.
Merry
I
Christmas.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
Local families have been getting their trees from Pine Valley for over 60 years. My hope is that future generations continue this wonderful Christmas tradition. It's a special time to come back to Pine Valley Christmas Tree Farm. Because again, I worked here and the family is so special. They're really growing the best trees in the business. This is Gregory Shelton with Historic Living, Modern World, reminding you whenever you try to do something, always make sure you move people. Cheers.